Hello and welcome to The Fix by The Fixer, Saki Moon. Thank you for joining us today. Today we bring to you Mr. Christopher Conway from Out for Good Incorporated by way of Adidas Park all the way to Cambridge College and beyond. Mr. Conway, thank you for being with us today. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Saki. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm so happy to have you here today, bro. You and I go way back, right? We've done a lot of work together. We talked about a lot of this stuff. We've had a lot of conversations about a lot of the things we're going to talk about today, but we want to bring it to the audience, right?
Yes.
Because at The Fix, what do? We bring information to the audience that they can work with, right? And we want to introduce them to people that they have seen in the community, right? And so today we have you. So, Mr. Conway, we have you by way of Out for Good today. Tell us about it.
Out for Good, wow. I started Out for Good in 2012 by way of working at Pyramid Builders Counseling Services. And it was something it was a seed that was planted in me by my mentor, Saki, which was, start your own business, create your own. I think it came from the philosophy of the Nation of Islam. But Saki and our Pyramid Builders, planted this seed into, you don't want to get your master's degree to be mastered. You want to get your master's degree and bring it back to the community and start something so you can employ, those that are unable to work. So what Out for Good does is they try to help people that are coming home from the penal system, whether it's women, men, juveniles, and we try to be that bridge for them to reintegrate back into society and getting their life back on track. Because studies show that when people come out of jail, they really don't have too many resources to help them, and 9 times out of 10, they are returned back to jail.
Right. And I remember, probably about 22 years ago, friends that I knew, older guys that had gone into the penal system and come out, they reported that they were able to get education while they were incarcerated, right? Get degrees while they were incarcerated, and then have a plan when they re-entered the community.
Right.
Why was re-entry so important to you in 2012?
Well, I like to look at myself as a walking testimony because I walked through that struggle, and I was also that person that when he came out of jail, he didn't have the resources to get back on track and to lead a productive life and be a productive member of society. And, I found that, a lot of my comrades that, I was locked up with, they struggle when they come home. And at Out for Good, our philosophy is that, 9 times out of 10 there's a substance abuse situation or mental health situation going on that keeps these individuals, returning citizens, going back and forth into the penal system.
Absolutely. And so what do you think it's more of? If there's an answer, is it more behavioral health diagnoses or substance diagnoses?
It kind of like fluctuates. It's different. I mean, we can't really kind of like hone in on one diagnosis. It's like individual, based on the individual. But what I can say is that a lot of people come home, and there are agencies out here to help them with resources. But a lot of these agencies, they don't factor in on the mental health. They just want to get them housing, want to get them employed, want to get them all these external things that they try to put in place for these people without looking at what's going on internally, which could be something going on substance abuse related or mental health.
Absolutely. So when I was thinking about that question, and from my experience in the field, it often is the behavioral health, right? That's the undiagnosed behavioral health,
yes,
right? Or cognitive delays or disorders, right? And so with those things, you can't fit into society perfectly. There has to be accommodations made, but if those barriers are not identified, then the accommodations can't be made, right? And so we saw people coming in and re-entering the community and going back in and re-entering the community, and then substance abuse hits, right? Because as you mentioned, the behavioral health has not been addressed. So you can give me all the bells and whistles, right? But I can't blow it if I don't know how to blow it right.
Right.
Right?
That's a good analogy. That's beautiful.
Right?
I like that.
Right? So talk to me a little bit more about why reentry was so important to you. I know that you said because you are a product of the reentry system.
Right.
What do you find as you provide this service to your clientele that they have identified as most important for them in the last 10 years?
Or sometimes it's like a lifestyle. Like, some people say that the person is addicted to the lifestyle because the person, we try to, kind of like change the narrative because some people come home and think that, they were making $5,000 when they went into prison, right? Now, when they get out, working a 9 to 5 is not going to work for them because of the lifestyle. They're accustomed to a certain lifestyle, right? And society puts into play that when you're an ex-con, you can't have these great jobs and you can't do anything for yourself or, to feed your family besides committing crimes. But there's a lot of things out there to help people, like the unions. You can start your own business. Go back to school because everyone has a talent. It's just that, we want to take that fast track because that's what we're used to. We're conditioned to that.
Right. And so I know that when you and I were working together in the field, we knew that straight away, right? And so one of the things I think we begin to incorporate in our work, or certainly in our meetings, was addressing the behavioral health first and then the social determinants of health, right? The housing need, the benefit need, the family reunification need, right? So addressing that behavioral health first. To your point that, we all have skills, we all have gifts, right? And how do we access those if we hadn't already accessed those? For your clientele, what is the best way that they would access the opportunity or agencies that will bring out their gifts?
Well, it really doesn't depend. It doesn't matter about the outside agency. It matters about the person himself, right? Because, like for me, for instance, all it took was somebody to give me an opportunity, right? Because I never had an opportunity. And the person that gave me an opportunity, happened to be Sekou Mims, and he's the one that, instilled in me to keep going forward. But if he wouldn't have believed in me, I didn't believe in myself.
Right.
But if he wouldn't have sat me on that couch and said, I'm going to give you a shot.
Right.
And believe in me, which a lot of people, that's what they need, someone to give them a shot and to believe in them, the success is greater. But if you don't have anyone to believe in you and give you that one chance, and sometimes that's all it takes is that one chance to move forward and get your life in order.
That is a beautiful, beautiful segue into my next question. What was your dream when you were a boy?
My dream was to find where my mom was at. Where's my mom? Where's my mother at? Where's my father? I heard stories of my father that he was killed before I was born, but, where's my mother? Because all these other kids had mothers. I had a foster mother, but all these other kids, which was older, and it bothered me because, I didn't want her coming to the school because she was older and a lot of other kids' mothers were younger. So my dream was to just find where my mom was at.
Talk to us about it.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Yeah. So, like
So
I said,
when you were old enough, so that was your dream as a boy, and at what age did you begin to really delve into where is my mother at?
Well, like you asked me a few minutes ago, what was my dream? I believe I, wanted to find that when I was younger, so I believe that's why I acted out, and that's why I found myself in DYS for 18 months and, in and out of, jail systems and in and out of drugs. And I didn't realize until I was 38 years old that I was mad at my mom and looking for someone that really wasn't looking for me. And, her not being in my life kind of like, messed my life up.
And when you say her not being in your life messed your life up, what is that poignant? Where? What was messed up?
My relationship with women, my connection, my social connection with people. Because remember that your mom is your first teacher and your first nurturer. Before you even brought on this earth, you knew your mom and you knew her how she dealt with things and her feelings 9 months while you were in her womb. So to come out her womb and be separated from that kind of like messed me up. So for that point was just to, how can I get that back? And I searched for it in all the wrong places and bumped my head along the way.
I appreciate you using the example of you were taken away from her, right? And what I know from being a doula is how important it is to immediately put the baby on its mother's chest, to immediately bond. So you understood very early, you didn't even have that bonding moment with your mother. Why?
I didn't understand that till I started studying psychology and studying human behavior. I didn't realize that when I was younger, but now that I look back on it, I see that's why I acted out. That's why I stole. That's why I used drugs, smoked marijuana, and did all these devilish things, because the only seed that was planted in my life was your father's this, your father's that, your father, right? So in my mind, I wanted to be like what they were telling me. I wanted to be like my father. I wanted to be this killer. I wanted to be this stick-up guy. So that's who I wanted to be when I grew up.
And your father, you were told your father was who and was what in life?
I was told my father was, a hustler. He was connected with the wrong people. He got killed for a contract killing from some guys that came out of, a different state, and they killed him. They took him to Franklin Park, shot him in the head, and kicked him out the car before I was even born. Right? This is generational, and my grandmother was killed. His mother was killed execution style in the bathtub because she sold drugs as her livelihood. So it's generational.
Absolutely, but you were with your grandmother at
And
that
I was with
time.
my great-grandmother.
You were with your great-grandmother at that time.
Right.
So your father was murdered execution style before you were born.
Right.
Your grandmother was murdered execution style at what age you were?
I don't even think I was born.
You may not, so it was before your father's death,
Right.
right?
So that allowed him for his grandmother to raise him, which happened to be my great-grandmother.
Right. And then your great-grandmother began to raise you.
Right.
Right. Tell us about that.
I mean,
How old were you when you...
she raised me from my mom dropped me off at 6 months old, and she raised me from 6 months till she passed away when I was 7. And I went to live in New York for a year, didn't like it, some things happened out there, and I asked her to come back to Boston, and they sent me back to Boston.
Tell the story about your great-grandmother. Not the final story, but talk about your great-grandmother and if she was able to give you the nurturing that you were looking for in your mother.
No.
No.
Outside, external, yeah, but internal, no. She just gave me, gifts and made sure I had this and made sure I had that. But I don't think she could fill that void of, a mother's love.
Right. And so you found out about your father, you found out about your mother. Did you have siblings? Do you have siblings?
Yeah,
and how
yeah.
did you find out about them?
That's an interesting story. So as I was growing up as a child, I had this thought in my head that I had siblings out there, but I didn't know to what extent. And as I started, getting my life back in order and walking on the straight path and doing the right thing, my higher power started opening some doors and revealing some things to me. And one of the things he revealed to me is that I have 8 other siblings that my mother, gave birth to.
Your mother gave birth to.
Yeah.
So when you found that out, what was the feeling and what was the first thing you did?
First thing I did
That
was,
confirmation, because you knew,
Right.
you felt them.
Right.
When it was confirmed, how did you feel and what did you do?
So, Facebook, well, Facebook was a part of it, but, I think it was just time. I think it was just the time, and, like I said, my higher power gave that to me when he was ready to give it to me. He wasn't ready to give it to me when I was ripping and running because I probably wouldn't have cared, But he gave it to me when it was time for me to appreciate it. He gave it to me when it was time for me to have it, when I, decided to get my life in order. And it was very profound, I cried and, it was a very, emotional moment.
So when you first seen your siblings, did you see yourself in their faces?
That's one of my sisters, yeah. When I seen it on Facebook, when I first seen my brother Harold on Facebook, I was like, this guy, he's not my brother. He can't be my brother because we had no resemblance. But when I seen my sister Michelle, I was like, yeah, that's my sister, and she's the first one I contacted.
I thought you and Harold looked like you all, but you have that ambiance.
Right.
You have that That
Same swag.
you have the same swag for sure,
Yeah.
which is very approachable, right? And masculine, and that's very important. So, are you a father?
Yeah, I'm a father of 3 beautiful children and 2 grandchildren.
And how did your children respond to you finding your siblings?
They were supportive. And my siblings have mad kids, so it was a great thing. There was something that they loved, and they now they can see that they have cousins and other family that they can see and relate to.
Absolutely. That's wonderful, and it's so important. I remember growing up with both sides of my family, up to the 3rd generation, right? And so I had all my cousins, my immediate cousins were like siblings as we were growing up, right? So that's very important. So tell us what, the behavioral health field and filling in the gaps of your history have done for you as a man and as a father.
So studying psychology, studying human development, studying all these different theories, I can kind of look back and say, well, this is why certain things happen, and try to kind of put the pieces to the puzzle, saying, okay, now I realize that my mother probably abandoned me because she was going through her own piece, right? And then I look down the line and say, well, okay, there's a possibility that I might have abandonment issues, right? So with that being said, I had to start working on my own self because I realized that I was, relationship hopping.
Relationship hopping.
When I was relationship hopping, it seemed like when I get into a relationship, I stay in there for a while, but then I always do something to self-sabotage that because of the abandonment piece. I'm scared that she's going to leave me, so let me leave her first.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that until I started doing some work on myself and started going to therapy, because they say that, when you're in this field, you should seek therapy because people are giving their stuff to you. You got to be able to give their stuff that you give to you to someone else. So it's called countertransference.
Mm-hmm.
You can't hold all the stuff that your clients give to you. You got to give it off.
Mm-hmm. How did it... I understand that you've been a father now. Your oldest child is how old?
Excuse me if I don't remember your age, son. 26, I believe Christian is.
Christian is 26 years old. So for the last 10 to 12 years of that 26 years, so almost half and half. Half of his life you were in the street, half of his life thus far you have evolved and become educated and a business owner, right?
Yeah.
How? Why? What do you think your difference in parenting is, or parenting style is?
So when my daughter was born, I kind of said that, I got to be there for, not to take away from my sons, my other 2 sons, but I said that when my daughter was born, knowing how I treated women when I was out there shucking and jiving and, sliding in the back door and playing Jody, I said that I don't want that for my daughter, so I got to be the man that I want my daughter to one day meet. So if I'm a piece of SHIT, then more than likely she's going to bump into that type of person because that's what she's seeing in her dad. So I tried to say, hey, I got to change my life around so I could be this stand-up, man that can say, that my daughter can say, this is what I want in a man when I get older, and not a dope fiend or someone that's going back and forth to jail.
And so do you believe that you have, so you made that decision. Has your daughter seen or noticed your evolution? You certainly did because you evolved intentionally. But your daughter, the one who you wanted to ensure got the better of you, did you see that? Did you notice that as you have been raising her? Do you notice the different stages that you went through with her? Yeah. Does she notice it?
I believe she appreciates it.
Is she into boys yet?
I'm sure she is, but I don't know about me and my daughter have a open relationship. We talk. I try to call her every day. We try to talk, and I try to be that voice that ear that she can talk to. But my daughter really never seen a bad side of me. My second son never really seen a bad side of me. he's seen and heard stuff, but I really never exposed my children to anything because, now knowing, didn't know then, but now knowing that what you expose your children to, more than likely that's what they're going to be into.
For sure. For sure. Mr. Conway, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
God willing, I got to give it up to higher power, the one who's steering the wheels of my life. I want to be I want to be a homeowner. I want to, have some real estate and, have my business running successfully. A couple people working with me, employees. I would like to have a home in Atlanta, and like my oldest son said, and watch my grandkids grow older.
Mm-hmm. And finally, Mr. Conway, tell us how you fixed it. What was the fix?
Like I said earlier, it's kind of like you got to first and foremost give it up to my higher power, which I have a faith that I believe in, and I practice it. So I think the turning point was the stakes was too high in the streets. The feds were sweeping in. 3 strikes, you're out. My last stint, I had 4 warrants for doing unnecessary things in the street, and I believe in signs from God. And one of the signs was that a serious situation happened in a drug lab where my case got overturned because of some corruption, and that was the turning point. I said, okay, I got to stop before God gave me a sign. I just got up from a habitual criminal. I got to do something different. But I was in school at the time, so I said I got to stop over here. I can't have one foot in and one foot out. I got to have both feet in. So I think that was a turning point. Is when my case got thrown out because of that situation, and I never turned back and said, hey, I'm going to continue to move forward and go to school. And God put people in my life to make sure that I stayed on that track, even though I tried to swerve off. He put people in my life to make sure I stayed on that track.
For sure. And if you don't mind me saying, Askia Academy, you were led right to Askia Academy.
Right.
And tell us a little bit about Askia Academy. And from our discussions, I know that was like a real building block for you. Really quickly, just talk to us about what Askia Academy did for you.
So I came into the door of Saki Academy. I was broken, and what they did was they, first incorporated for individuals recovering sound thinking. They took me from being a broken individual that was running the streets and showed me how to be a man. So that, thank you for bringing that up because, that was also a pivotal point in my life with the Saki Academy. And what was so funny about it, I grew up with the Saki kids and knew their father and never knew that I would be in his house, which was a recovery program.
Absolutely. And I remember you saying how they broke you all the way down to lift you all the way back up. And look at how you've risen. Mr. Conway, I want to thank you for joining us today. I want you to share with our audience how they can get in touch with Out for Good and what insurances you accept.
Out for Good, we are doing substance abuse, outpatient therapy at this particular time. We do Corey checks, notary public. We help people seal their Corey because your Corey is not your story. So if you need help sealing your Corey, you can check out our website, www.outforgoodinc.com, or y'all can be reached at info@outforgoodinc.com or 617-980-8835.
And at The Fix, we're going to have you come back and co-host with us. We'll talk to you more. We want to thank you for being here, Mr. Conway, and Out for Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's
Thank
fix
you.
it. If it's broke, we can fix it.
If it's broke, we can fix it. That's right.